Thank you. Thank you very much, Laura. I would like to take this moment to introduce our two wonderful speakers today, and thank you them very much for putting together this information to share with our members. Dr. Carolyn Eyles is a professor in the School of Earth, Environment, and Society and the School of Interdisciplinary Science at McMaster University. She holds a BSc in Environmental Sciences, a postgrad certificate of education, and an MSc and PhD in geology from the University of Toronto. Her research involves analysis of glacial sediments and their origin. She is certified as a professional geoscientist in Ontario and is a 3M National Teaching Fellow. She was recently awarded the APGO Award of Merit. Carolyn is passionate about geoscience education initiatives that inform and encourage further investigation by students and members of the public, and joined the board of directors of the APGO Education Foundation in January of 2019. So welcome, Carolyn. Thank you so much for joining us today. Deana Schwarz received her PhD in stable isotope geochemistry at Western University, where she studied how the isotropic composition of modern pollen grains is related to environmental parameters such as rain and humidity. She has a background and continued passion for paleontology and all critters, both alive and long extinct. Deana has taught at the university and college level and enjoys sharing her passion with the public. So welcome to you both, and I really look forward to hearing more about your presentation today and learning about the wonderful geology along the Niagara Escarpment. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Jackie. It's a pleasure to be here. We have a third member of our team who is not with us today, Bill Pearson, Dr. Bill Pearson. But I just want to acknowledge that he's a founder of this, the Geotrail project, and should be acknowledged too. So I will continue on with a wonderful kind of webinar here. I hope it is going to be fun for you. We're going to introduce you to geotrails along the Bruce Trail, and we think these are a really fun and interesting way to learn about the geological environmental history of the Niagara Escarpment. So we're going to tell you a little bit about the background as to why we created these geotrails, and then we're going to run through a couple of the geotrails to demonstrate how you can use those and how they can inform you about some of the features that you will see when walking along parts of the Bruce Trail. So I want to start basically, first of all, by, I know this is a kind of an upside down way of doing things, but these trails, the geotrails, would not be possible without the input from an awful lot of people. And I just want to acknowledge that before we actually start this presentation. We're very appreciative of McMaster University and, of course, the Bruce Trail Conservancy for their support. A whole bunch of our students and our postdocs as well. The APGO Education Foundation has been incredibly supportive and allows us to publish these geotrails on the Geoscience Info website. We also are coordinating some of our geotrails with the UNESCO Aspiring Niagara Peninsula Geopark. So some of the geotrails actually connect both to the Bruce Trail and to the Aspiring Geopark. And we acknowledge funding from MyTax Accelerate program for our students last summer. So here are a happy bunch of students here. So to start with, I'd like to explain what are geotrails. What are they? Well, geotrails are really online guides, and they're meant to provide information about the geological and the environmental history of the Niagara Escarpment along the Bruce Trail, places that you'll see along the Bruce Trail. And I've given you a link there to our Geotrails site on the geoscienceinfo.com website. So they can either be used, the geotrails are intended either to be used while you're on a hike on the Bruce Trail using a cell phone, or you can use these geotrails at home, sitting in your lounge or your desk, to learn about the geology and the natural environment. We're trying to make these geotrails as immersive as possible to give you the experience of actually being on the trail if you're not there, or if you are on the trail, being able to point out important information and sites for you to see while you're walking the trail. So we're using a variety of imagery to do this on our geotrails. We're using high resolution 360-degree photographs, which take you all around and you can spin around and look around the site. Drone images as well of the important sites. We annotate a lot of our images with slide bars. So you can slide across the photograph and the photograph will point out, or the annotations will point out key features that we want to show. And we've also introduced to our geotrails 3D LiDAR models. So we take these 3D LiDAR models using an iPad, and we can actually give you three-dimensional images of some important features, maybe some blocks of rock or some fossils, and that really helps to see and understand all of the things that we're talking about on the geotrail. If you go onto the Geoscience Information website, this is the key illustration that you will see that will introduce you to our Niagara region geotrails. So why did we choose the Niagara Escarpment for our geotrails? Well, the Niagara Escarpment is the major geographic and topographic feature here in Southern Ontario. It's really an important feature across this part of the province. However, the majority of the population know very little about its very rich geological history and why it's so important to us and why it needs to be protected as well. So it's important both recreationally, the Bruce Trail, as you know, as Bruce Trail members, it's a key site for hiking. It's also important economically for tourism. Our wineries on the Niagara Peninsula would not be there without the Niagara Escarpment affecting climatic conditions and air circulation in the area. We also have aggregate quarries around the escarpment, which are economically important. It's also an important feature culturally and socially. In Hamilton, for example, the Niagara Escarpment bisects the city of Hamilton. And so it's part of the city infrastructure. So we need to understand something about the escarpment to understand what urban growth is, how urban growth is going to affect our natural environment and how we can try to protect it. And again, I will emphasize that there's very limited information available in an appropriate form, an accessible form for the public. So I said that the Niagara Escarpment has a fascinating geological history. I just want to tell you a brief amount about that. We do provide much more information on the geotrail sites. But the rocks that you see exposed along the Niagara Escarpment basically accumulated as sediments in shallow seas that covered much of the North American continent, which was called Laurentia during the Paleozoic. And this is a time, we're talking mostly about the time period between about 450 and 420 million years ago. Now, the image at the bottom of the screen there is a cross-section across southern Ontario, going towards the east coast of North America. We're looking north, east is to the right, west is to the left. And I've chosen Hamilton to give you a location with that little red star there. So this is the situation, what the area looked like before about 440 million years. We were on the edge of a major ocean basin, the Iapetus Ocean, which was basically the former Atlantic Ocean. But something happens around 440 million years ago, and we start to have a continent move towards Laurentia. This continent was Baltica, and it collides with the ancient North American continent. And when we have two continents colliding, we create a mountain range. So this little cartoon, kind of cartoon will show you what is happening when that collision occurs. So here comes Baltica coming in from the right-hand side here. It's coming in from the east. As Baltica starts to collide, we start to grow a series of mountains. And this is because everything gets compressed, gets squished together during this collision. Those mountains are called the Taconic Mountains. They lay approximately in the position of where the Appalachians are today. So they lie to the south and the east of us here in southern Ontario. And the Taconic Mountains actually separated the ancient Iapetus Ocean on the east from a new seaway that developed over most of the North American continent towards the west. And you can see Hamilton there with the red star again is covered by this shallow inland seaway. It's not an ocean, it's more of a shallow sea. Very important for all of the rocks that accumulated, or the sediments that accumulated to form the rocks we now see in the Niagara Escarpment. The mountains themselves, you can see a river coming off the mountains there. The mountains themselves started to erode, and a lot of the sediment that was eroded from the mountains gets carried over deltas into that interior seaway where Hamilton's lying. So some of the sediment that we now see in the Niagara Escarpment was sourced from those Taconic Mountains around about 440, 430 million years ago. The other thing to note here is that at this time, this whole area lay close to the equator. So it was very warm. And that shallow seaway was, it contained warm water, which was ideal for the growth and the development of all kinds of faunal creatures that lived along the seafloor, in and on the seafloor. So that's a little bit of, that's a quick kind of snippet about the background. Now, what do we see as a result of this kind of geological scenario in the Niagara Escarpment rocks? Well, we see dominantly dollar stones and shales. Those warm, shallow seas allowed the development of lots of organisms which died, and their shells and skeletons fell to the floor of the sea and created a carbonate sediment, which is now turned into limestone and dollarstone. And we see these limestones and dollarstones, they're fairly resistant rocks. They don't erode all that easily. And they form things like, we've got the flower pots here at Tobermory. They also form the cap rock, the top rock on the top of the Niagara Escarpment. And they protect the underlying rocks from erosion. The sediment that was eroded from the Taconic Mountains, the sandstones and the mud, is deposited in the area as sandstone and shale. And a good example of that is when we see the Queenston Shale. It's that red colored shale that we find at the bottom of at the very lowermost part of the Niagara Escarpment. And that shale is fairly easily eroded. So the erosion of those shales helps the escarpment move backwards, erode backwards, and be constantly forming. It's a growing, it's a developing landform. It's constantly evolving. So those resistant dollarstones and the easily eroded shales really give a good shape to our escarpment. That's what really controls the development of the escarpment itself and the shape that we see on the escarpment face. Now, another thing is that because it was a tropical seaway that we had over the Hamilton, Southern Ontario area, and lots of organisms were able to live in this warm, shallow water. And as a result, the escarpment itself contains a very rich fossil record. So we have all sorts of organisms living in this shallow seaway, and this is an animation showing you what we think the seaway looked like about 430 million years ago. So we had brachiopods, shelled organisms living on the seafloor, some corals, interesting features that eurypterids look like a bit like sea scorpions. We have our trilobites. You can see them scurrying along the seafloor there. And you saw floating through or swimming through the seaway there, some of our cephalopods. They were carnivorous organisms. Some of them grew quite large in this seaway. So these organisms, oh, and the other organism I should point out there are those long, skinny, stalked organisms. They're actually animals, they're not plants, and those are called crinoids. And the fragments of the crinoid stems that you can see there get easily broken up. And we see those scattered through almost all of our limestones and dollarstones along the Niagara Escarpment. So the crinoid fossils are probably the most common fossils that we see in the Niagara Escarpment. However, I can just emphasize the escarpment contains a very rich fossil record, which is fascinating. So the second thing is we chose the Niagara Escarpment. So why choose the Bruce Trail to locate our geotrails along? Well, the Bruce Trail, as you know, runs continuously along the Niagara Escarpment from Queenston in the south to Tobermory in the north. It's Canada's longest marked footpath, and it's hiked by many, many, many people. The BTC itself, as you know, are stewards of the trail, has over 12,000 members. So here we have a large number of people who would be interested in learning some of the geoscience on our geotrails. The other thing is the Bruce Trail is proximal to the GTHA. We have a huge population center there also interested or potentially interested in learning about the fascinating geoscientific information that's contained within the Niagara Escarpment. So the geotrails, getting onto the geotrails, that's a bit of background. So getting onto the geotrails themselves, we've published 6 geotrails so far. And as I said, they're accessed on the geoscienceinfo.com website. These are the 6 geotrails. We have 3 in the Hamilton region, the Chidoki Radial Trail, Sulphur Springs, and Tiffany Falls. And they're shown by that little cluster of green markers in the Hamilton area on the map below. And then we've created 3 towards Niagara, one at Balls Falls, at Cave Springs, and we have one at the Niagara Gorge, which is not on the Bruce Trail, but is just south of it. So these are the geotrails we have so far. They're openly accessed. You can go and access any of these geotrails, as I say, either on a cell phone or on your computer at home. So how do we create these geotrails? How are they constructed? Well, the first thing we do is we select portions of the Bruce Trail that have got particularly interesting geological features. And the ones we've selected so far are those that we have in our local area around Hamilton and towards Niagara. We send out parties of students and ourselves and postdocs to collect data. We get them to go out there, survey the trail, look at all features that could be of geological interest. They collect the information, and most importantly, they collect images of the key features. And we have, as I say, we're going to show you 360-degree photographs where you can get a look all around a particular site. We take 3D scans using our iPads, and the 2 central images below there show our students collecting 3-dimensional scans of outcrops. We take drone images, and you can see on the bottom left-hand side there, we've got Bill there flying the drone, Bill Pearson flying the drone, getting lessons from one of our students, Joe there. So a lot of these data are collected, and then these data, these images and the information that we collect from the trails then get passed on to Deana. And I'm now going to pass on to Deana to explain what she does with them next.
Thank you. So yes, once the exciting part of the process gets finished, it gets sent to me, and I convert the material and the information, the data, onto our website. We use something called a StoryMap that is offered through Esri's platform, and it uses ArcGIS platform for that. And we have chosen to use what's called a sidecar story map. So we have the text on one side. In our case, we always have it on the left side, and we have some kind of media on the right side that accompanies a section of text. So the media could be a static photo, a 360-degree photo, a video, a 3D LiDAR model, whatever. We try to be as variable as possible so that we can appeal to all the senses and try to get people to learn through different means. So this is just a screenshot of what many hours of my life looks like when I convert this online. So.
Okay, so what we thought would be the best thing to do here is to give you a tour of a couple of our geotrails. So we've selected 2 geotrails that we're going to take you through and show you some of the highlights, some of the features that we've included on the geotrails. So the first geotrail is going to be the Falls Geotrail. It lies on the Bruce Trail, and Falls is also identified as a geosite for the Niagara Peninsula Aspiring Global Geopark. You can access the geotrail using the link that we've got there, but Deana is going to take us through now. She's going to take over the screen and she's going to give us a tour through the Falls Geotrail.
Thank you. So I have thrown my screen on here. So you're looking at my screen right now. And if you were to go to geoscienceinfo.com, which I hope you do, this is the screen that you would see popping up on the home page on your laptop. Everything looks a little different when you're accessing it through your phone, but everything is prepared on our website to look good both on a laptop or a tablet or a phone. So because I'm on my laptop, I will show you what it looks like. You have a few options here, but we're going to look at Geotrails. So I'll click on Geotrails, and it takes you to our Geotrails story map. Now this right here, it has been prepared through Esri, but is being shown obviously through our website. So we have 6 geotrails prepared, and this is all from data that was collected in the 2022 field season. As you can see, if you click on one, it will center over top of what you're looking at. If you scroll down, it centers over where it is on the map. And it gives you just a really, really brief summary here. So if you click on it, it'll take you right to the geotrail and right to the main page. And like Carolyn said, these geotrails were created basically, I would say, with 3 main purposes in mind. For you to look at home and learn about it without having to go out, or some people are not able even to get to the area, so they want to learn a little bit about the geology in the area from afar, or to learn in the classroom. If teachers want to take their students on a field trip, buses are too expensive to rent these days, so you can show these in your classroom. Or you want to go to the trail, but you don't necessarily know what you're looking at. Or maybe you do, but you just want more details. So you can bring your phone along, get the geotrail, and as you're walking, it'll tell you where to stop on the website, and then it'll tell you what you're looking at. So when you get to the Falls Geotrail, you'll start at this page here. It'll give you an approximate distance and a very approximate duration, depends on how long you want to stay and admire the rocks. And as you scroll down, there is information, a little brief introduction to the geotrail. We try to start with some kind of photo to orient yourself. So this one is the Falls Center for Conservation, which is the building. It's the visitor center right by the parking lot. Anybody who's been there knows what I'm talking about. Just so you know where you are. And we also have audio clips that accompany all our text, just to make this accessible. So the text below, for example, if I click on here.
How to use this geotrail.
You might recognize the voice.
Use the tabs at the top on.
And I won't make you listen to my voice at the same time, but basically every text that you see has an accompanying clip, that audio clip, so you can listen to it as well. We also have how to use this geotrail, and this is the same on all our geotrails. So it tells you that we have basically at the top, we have all of these tabs that you can choose from. It gives you the home page and all the stops, geological setting and environment. On your cell phone, if you're accessing it, you could even access it right now as you're looking along. It'll look a little different because it's your cell phone, but it still looks presentable. And we have 3 little bars in the top left corner that you can click on, and then you get a drop-down menu that shows all of the same things at the top here. And then you can go to whichever one you want, or you can just go one at a time. As we scroll down here on the main page, we have an overview map of Balls Falls. We have the Balls Falls Visitor Center and this little blocky black sign right here. And it just, again, gives you, it orients you to where you are. And we go down, of course, we have a land acknowledgement wherever we go. And as we keep scrolling down, we have an overview of each stop with a very brief summary. So what we have here when we get to the first stop is Upper Falls. We have a little map here that remains here, but it moves according to where the stop is. So this is number 1 is where Upper Falls is. Here's one photo of Upper Falls. As we continue to scroll down, we move on to the stop number 2, which is the Woolen Mill Ruins. And you notice that the map moves as we go. And it just gives you a very brief summary. So you can decide, oh, I'm really interested in learning about 20 Mile Creek. I'll just go right to stop number 4. So if we go to stop number 1, I'll click up here on the tab. It'll take you to the Upper Falls. We start off here on the left side where the text is. We always have an information card which has the GPS coordinates. You can punch in, very exact, and accessibility information on a scale of 1 to 3. So 1 being very accessible, you could access it via a wheelchair, and number 3 being very inaccessible. So it's quite difficult to get where we want you to be. So this one's a 2 because it's difficult to get there with a wheelchair. So as you scroll down, we have text, how to get there. Here's a map to show you, and this is of course available at the site itself. And as we continue to scroll down, we start to learn about the dollostones. These are dollostones, very typical at this site. This is Upper Falls. Dollostones, of course, as Carolyn was saying, are the rocks that were deposited way back in the Silurian, when all of this area was a shallow marine sea close to the equator. And all those fun little critters lived in there. So lots of fossils throughout there, I'm sure. And then we come down to our first 360-degree photo. So I did that a little bit quickly, but if you click twice, you can get in and it'll show you a 360-degree photo of the site. This one's a little shady, so we will be replacing this with one with better light, but it's mainly there so that you can be immersed at the stop. So we try to include them at every single stop. You can be immersed at the stop, kind of feel what it's like to be there. And also, if you are there, to ensure that you're in the right spot too. So you can look around and say, yep, this is what I'm looking at. And so the information on the left, is applicable to what you're looking at. I will continue to scroll down. We see lovely groundwater coming out of all the dollostone. Sometimes that's all you're going to see is groundwater coming out of the rocks when you're at the Upper Falls. And here you can learn about some cherts that are sticking out of the dollostone and learn about why you see those cherts and why they're not eroding like the other rocks. And then you get to our first 3D LiDAR model. These are pretty cool. If you double click on that, it will activate the model, and then you can interact with it. This works on your phone, of course, and your laptop, and you can turn it around, have some fun. And what's really great about it is this, you can scroll in and the detail is quite magnificent. You can scroll back out. And what we've done here is we've annotated it where we can, trying to direct you to what we want you to look at. So in this case, we want you to know these are dollostone blocks. You can learn about them. But down here in particular, if you're standing in front of this wall, we want you to see that there are fossils down here. So take a look right here. And when you're standing there, and you're going to see some fossils. So you don't have to start looking for an hour and a half as to where everything is. And then number 3 shows you where specifically some chert nodules can be found. So these are a pretty exciting learning tool that we were excited to provide. And then as you keep scrolling down, of course, there are different figures, etc. As you go to the next stop, the next one is the Woolen Mill Ruins, which can be found, and it's basically the same kind of format. This one is a little more historical, but you're learning about the geology. You double click here on the 3D model and you're going to see same kind of thing we saw last time, but of course specific to this stop. So this one is pretty cool as you spin it around. This one's not annotated, but the others are. I will let you on your own time go through stops number 3 to 6 because we don't have time to go through in detail. So I'll take you right to stop number 7, which is the money shot of everything. This is the Lower Falls. This is what everybody loves to come look at, and with good reason. So of course, as you scroll down, we have our GPS and accessibility coordinates. Double click here and you activate the 360-degree photo, which just looks beautiful. And Lower Falls has this spectacular stratigraphy that's visible. You can see all these rock units. Of course, many people would look at this and say, it's so colorful, it's so beautiful, but you know, that maybe looks like sandstone, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what time this was deposited. So we are here to hopefully answer your questions. As you scroll down, here's a slide bar. So this is what Carolyn was talking about. And in this situation, we've used it to give you the original photo, if you want to look at that, but also to give you what the rock units are called and plop them directly on the rock units themselves so that you can stand in front of it and say, oh, well, look at that. There's, you know, the Meriton Dolostone or what have you. And of course, in the text, it tells you when it was laid down, and there's so much to learn here. So, and as you scroll down, lots of photos, we've got talus slope. And at the bottom here, we have a wonderful cross-section of all the rock units. And this might look familiar because this sign is provided at the site itself. This one, I believe, is updated a little bit. But this is so important because it just provides a wonderful context of the rock units and how they're laid down and what you can see at each stop. So up here is Upper Falls. I don't know if you can see me circling it like crazy, but that's where we started at stop number 1. So you can see, okay, well, this purpley blue, that's the DQ Formation Dolostone. That's what's exposed here. And as we go down to the Lower Falls, then we're starting to see, you know, the Irondequoit and the Meriton Formation exposed here in the light blue. So this is a very important diagram. And I mentioned that it was updated recently, and that's a key thing about our Geotrails is that these are all live documents. So these are documents that we're always revisiting and always updating based on information that's provided to us by peer-reviewed literature. So if I move on, hoping I'm okay for time, Carolyn. Okay, just stop me if I'm not. The geological setting. So the geological setting is great because it provides a broader context to the geology. And if you start going through, hopefully when you start going through all of our Geotrails, you'll notice the geological setting tab is the same for all of them, because the ones in this area all have the same broader geological history, the same story to tell. So we wanted to provide that to you. So as you go down, you'll see, for example, interactive map here. You can click on the rock units and you can learn what the exposed bedrock is for all over Ontario. And down here, of course, we are in the Paleozoics, which are the fun rocks, and don't let anyone tell you differently. As you go down, we have wonderful graphics. Okay, this is the wonderful animation that Carolyn showed you. Oh, no, maybe she didn't show you this, but this is a cross-section of the Paleozoics in the light blue, and in the reddy brown is a Canadian Shield, which is much, much older than the Paleozoics. So if you're looking at it from the top, which is what we all look at these rocks, you'll know that we're standing on Paleozoics, and the Canadian Shield is you know, that way as you go north and northeast. But if you look at it from the side, you can see, yes, the Paleozoics lay on top of the Canadian Shield, which makes sense because they're so much younger than the Canadian Shield. So they were deposited much, much later. And as you go down, we have these original animations that we've made, and they tell the stories that we want to tell. And sorry, I won't dwell on this one, but it's a good one. It's a wonderful representation of how the tectonic mountains formed. And as you keep going, we have great learning tools. And of course, I will stop again, but Carolyn showed you this. This is a wonderful Paleozoic sea. So this is kind of a generic underwater sea. It could apply to Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, but you see all of these little critters, trilobites, nautiloids, and of course these long crinoids that Carolyn was talking about. So when you guys are looking through the rocks in the Niagara region and you see all these dollostones and limestones that have these little Cheerio-like fossils in them, they're circles with holes in the middle. Those are actually little ossicles, flat little discs that are all stacked on top of each other to form the stem of this animal. The animal's up here, up in there. So when it dies, they disarticulate and they all fall apart because the ligaments degrade and all those little discs fall apart and they get buried in the sediment, and many of them turn into fossils. So, yes, and then we have, I'm not going to go through this because it's a long one, but a nice video of how fossils are made. And I think we also have the environment tab, but I think I will let you go through that on your own, and I will let Carolyn take over from here.
Thanks, Deana. Well, I hope that gave you a kind of a good, that was a good tour of our geotrails. And they're all very similar, but they all have different features on them because obviously they're different areas. So I want to show you something of the Tiffany Falls Geotrail. Can I share, can you unshare your screen, Deana?
I sure can, yes.
Okay, and I will share my screen here. Okay, so the Tiffany Falls Geotrail is another one, and it has some different features. So Bowles Falls concentrates a lot on the geological features. The Tiffany Falls Geotrail also talks about the geology, but focuses on some of the modern processes, but specifically to do with the river and the formation of the valley and things that are going on in the river itself today. So it's got different features in this one here. So I hope I'm going to be able to share my other screen. So I'm going to stop sharing that one and I'm going to share another one. So I hope you can see my Tiffany Falls Geotrail screen now. So the same as with the other geotrails that Deana's just led you through, we have the geotrail summary here that will tell you a little bit about the Tiffany Falls Conservation Area, and it has the land acknowledgement again, and it tells you about the various stops, same as the Bowles Falls Geotrail. Just a quick little snippet here about some of the features that you can see with the map also moving along up the valley here. And along the top, you can see the series of stops. So I'm just going to show you a couple of the stops that are a little different. I'm going to go to stop number 4, and I'm going to show you the panorama here. So you can zoom in and out of these panoramas, these 360-degree panoramas, but they're there again, as Deana said, to orient you. And these ones are for you to look particularly at some of the river features. So as we go down on this geotrail, we have information that tells you something about the actual river system itself, the Tiffany Creek here. So here we've got some annotations that tell you, here we have the main channel going to the left and a secondary channel to the right with a bar in between. So that just gives you some more information about some of the terminology that we will use on some of the fluvial systems. And here's just some of the erosion that goes on along the side of the creek. I'm going to move on to stop number 7, because stop number 7 shows us what we call a talus span. And this is where we have rocks falling off the side of the valley. And we've used another slide bar here to show you where that talus span is. So when we're talking about a talus span, you can look at the feature there and say, oh yeah, now I can see where the fan is. So again, this goes through some other information, particularly about some of the materials. And here we have another slide bar here that shows you 2 rock types that you are likely to see along the valley. The one on the left is a dolostone, and that's probably come from the local slope here. The one on the right is very different, and that is one of the Canadian shield rocks, which was probably transported to this area via glaciers and has probably fallen into the valley from glacial deposits, which are being eroded at the top of the valley. So here's the slider. You can see the original photograph here and the annotated versions. Again, it's all intended to provide more and more information to either the viewer or the hiker as they're going along the trail. And then I'm going to skip to stop number 8 here. This is where we've tried to include something a little different, because the river system is very important at Tiffany Falls. So we've included something about the benthic habitats here and talked about what you can see in the actual stream. We have an image here that shows something about the life cycle of some of these macro invertebrates that inhabit the stream system. And we have some photographs here of some of the pebbles that you can pick up from the stream to look at some of these organisms. And here we have another slide bar that will show you the original photograph, and then we'll point out some of the caddisfly larvae, etc., that are sitting on the bottom of this rock that's been picked up from the stream bed. So we've added another feature here, which is an actual poll. And this is where we're going to try and introduce more of these features to the Geotrails, where users of the Geotrail can actually provide some information about the things that they're seeing along the Geotrail. So we can utilize these and we can summarize them and maybe produce little graphs or whatever of who's seeing what at what time of the year and so forth. So this is a little poll here that says what kind of species did you see today, crayfish, caddisfly, whatever. You click on that and then it goes down to the bottom and you can submit that. Okay, so again, another one of our features. And then I'm going to finally visit stop 9, which is actually the stop at the falls themselves. And this is another one of those slide bars that illustrates the or that indicates the geologic units that we have there that we can see in the falls, because there's a beautiful exposure through the upper part of the escarpment here. And that slide bar tells you about the features that you can see here. If we go down in this site, we've got more of the 3-dimensional models here. Again, you can move these around. They tell you something about the Meriton Formation. And as you can see, the resolution of these images is excellent. And so when you're in the field, you can actually go and look at these and see actually the rock that we have here on the image. You can see that in person at the site if you so wish. So these are, again, there's another 3-dimensional model further down the falls, and we have some information about some of the red-brown staining that you can see here, which is called tufa. And I like this one because it shows the falls at different times of the year. So you can see this when we've got high flow after a rain event, and here, which is often the situation in the summer when there's very low flow. So that again illustrates some more of the features. We've highlighted on this one some of the nick points that you've got there and so forth. So I think that gives a reasonable kind of summary of some of the features that we can see on these various sites. And I'm going to share I'm going to go back to my original screen here and show you, kind of move on from that. So that's Tiffany Falls. Our other 4 sites are very similar to that, and you're more than welcome to go and explore those as you can. What I'd like to do here is tell you what's next. Where do we go from here? We've done 6 geotrails so far. We've, over the next approximately 3 years, we'd like to complete at least 10 geotrails in each of the major sections of the Bruce Trail. So in the Niagara area, in the Caledon-Dufferin area, and then in the Bruce Peninsula area. This, of course, is all subject to funding. If we can get support to help keep our students alive over the summer, we can do that. But that's what we're hoping to do. So we're using these really as the 6 that we've got so far as a prototype so that we can expand into different areas. We're hoping to have 2 field crews of geological students and a postdoc supervised by ourselves, head out into the field over the next 3 summers to do this. So there's lots of work for us to do, and it's really fun and very exciting for both ourselves and our students. It's a huge learning experience for the students. How can you help as BTC members? Well, we'd love your help. We really would like to hear from you. Send us suggestions for additional geotrail segments on the Bruce Trail where you think there's really good areas that we could focus a geotrail. You know that the Bruce Trail better than any of us collectively, so please send us your suggestions. Let us know of any interesting or unusual geological features you see along the trails. Even if you don't think it's a huge segment, just features that look to be of interest, let us know about those. And also send us any comments or suggestions you may have about how we can improve the geotrails. We do, as Deana said, they're living documents. We are working on them constantly. We would like to incorporate more ecological information along a lot of our trails, and we can easily add another tab on each of our trails to include ecological information. But any other suggestions that you have about what we can include, or some of the things that you either like or maybe even don't like, please let us know. And I've put up the email address for you to send that information to. That will go to Deana, who will compile all of that. So I hope that has been, it's been quite a quick tour of our geotrails, but I hope it's informed you of the major features of our geotrails. I thank you very much for listening, and I open up for any questions that you may have. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you both very much. The Geotrails is so well thought out, and the information is put together so excellently that I'm sure the members that have heard this and that we share this information with are going to have a great time exploring. I know when I was out on the Geotrails last summer, it was fantastic. The information was well shared and just adds that extra bit to your hike when you're going along and you can know a little bit more about the geology. So we do have a couple of questions that have come in. One, you kind of hinted about that you're going to be adding more geotrails. Is there maybe 1 or 2 that you're working on to add in this year?
Yes, we're compiling a list of geotrails to work on. The ones that we can do most easily are those that are going to be between kind of the Hamilton area and Niagara. So we're looking along the Bruce Trail. There's various sites that we'd like to go to along that have also been identified as geosites for the aspiring geopark in Niagara. I think we're going to focus on those first before we start to head up the escarpment towards the Bruce Peninsula. But I know our students are very keen for us to do a geotrail somewhere up the Bruce Peninsula near Tobermory so that they can have somewhere exciting to go and visit.
Great. We have a comment here. It's an amazing and fantastic educational tool. The question is there any consideration regarding possible degradation due to people exploring and doing things like picking up stones to look for the little critters underneath?
We do try to put warnings on the geotrails about being cautious about protecting the environment and being, careful about not doing any degradation, but it's something that I think we probably have to, I don't know, make more obvious at certain sites. Yes, I think we've tried to make as many notifications about areas that are sensitive and try to avoid those as well. And the places where we have kind of suggested people could pick up kind of stones from the stream are not particularly in sensitive areas that we see as, overly sensitive. But we do add warnings on that as well.
Perfect. And how much data do you think an average user would use on their cell phone during a supported tour?
Ooh, I don't know that one. Deana, do you?
No, I do not know the answer to that. That's a good one. That's a good one.
One of the things that we are exploring, is.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to? Do you take that one, Deana? Because you know.
Well, I was just gonna say that perhaps your ears were ringing because at our last meeting we were discussing the fact that we are going to put all of this into a very accessible app that you can download off the app from the App Store, because obviously everybody needs to access things through an app, as do I, and hopefully it'll be just much more accessible, and you don't have to go directly to the website. Right now you do have to go directly to the website, but we have actually meetings scheduled to discuss converting this into an app. So no, I can't tell you how much data this would take. However, that might all be changing once we convert this into an app. But that is something that would be worth exploring and then perhaps having available to the public. So we'll write that down.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We have some suggestions here to see a geotrail on the Cheltenham Badlands, and thank you. This is a great tool for hikers to use to enhance their hikes. And another member says, can you tell us what suggestions you already have for new geotrails so we don't duplicate what's already been provided, but maybe you want to get those duplications so you know where people are thinking that it would be great, so that you have that kind of quantitative or qualitative data to say, 100 people want it here at the Cheltenham Badlands. Is that?
Yeah. It would be great if we hear any suggestions, because then when there's lots of duplications, we can put those as higher on our list of to-dos, because there's more demand for them. One of the things that we are working on at the moment is actually a winery geotrail that will link into a lot of these sites via the wineries as well on the Niagara Peninsula. So the geotrails that we'll do on the Bruce Trail are ones that we'd like to link as much between Hamilton and Niagara as possible. That's our kind of prime focus for the coming summer, and then we'll work on beyond that. But Cheltenham Badlands is a good one. I'd like to do that one too.
Awesome. And somebody would like to know a little bit more about the Aspiring Geological Park. Can you talk a little bit more about what is involved there in the process?
Yeah, the Niagara Peninsula Aspiring UNESCO Geopark is it's undergone it's gone certain way through approvals. It's waiting full approval before it can become a full geopark, and that might take until next year or the year after. And the geopark itself will consist of a variety of geosites, and the geotrails that we're doing along the Bruce Trail will link some of those geosites. So these geotrails will also be accessed via the Niagara Peninsula Aspiring Geopark sites, as well as the Bruce Trail and our own APGO geoscience information site. So I can say that the geopark is under, should I say, under development. It's going through the approvals process with the UNESCO kind of major international body. But we had meetings last summer, and the Balls Falls Geotrail was actually highlighted as part of the Aspiring Geopark, and the Canadian committee really enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you. A question about what email address to send suggestions to. Could you remind us? And we will also include that information when we send the recording out to our members.
Deana?
Yes. So the one there was an email that was posted. So manager@geoscienceinfo.com.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Awesome.
And we really do want input from everybody, because we really do.
Perfect.
Yes,
and
I will just say also, I mean, apart from, you know, insulting me personally, please do not, but I do not take criticism. If you want to say something, you didn't like something on the website, you like this on the website, or, you know, this would be better if you did this, you know, don't feel bad. Like, just send me an email, let me know, and I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to think about it. So
perfect.
Thank you.
And yeah, a lot of comments about, you know, this has been an amazing gift and they can't wait to use it, and it's so exciting. Perhaps Albion Falls could be another spot that you do soon, because it's so visited and spectacular.
Albion Falls is a tricky one because the city won't let us go into Albion Falls anymore. So it's kind of, the falls themselves are a bit out of bounds right now, but we do have a lot of data from Albion Falls that was collected prior to, you know, people jumping off there or whatever. So yeah, we have, yeah, Albion Falls. The other one is the Devil's Punch Bowl is a good one. That's got spectacular kind of sections through the stratigraphy. So we have that one in our back pocket as well.
Great. And one of our Peninsula Club members here said, excellent presentation, very informative. Would love to see a geotrail on the Bruce Peninsula. What types of funding are usually used to develop a geotrail, and is there a possibility of municipal or local funding to host a trail?
That is one of our big issues right now, is actually getting funding to develop these trails. They're not expensive to develop. It's mostly funding for students, for summer stipends for students. And when we eventually go up to further up the Bruce Peninsula, there will be additional costs there. We have applied for MyTax funding in the past. We did last year. We intend to apply for MyTax funding again, which will support maybe a couple of students. But we're always seeking opportunities for getting additional funding to support this, because it really is run kind of on a shoestring in a way. Again, it's mainly student support that we're looking for. But if anybody has any suggestions of places that we may look to for further additional financial support to help us develop these, we'd be really appreciative of that.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I'm sure that we're going to see lots of BTC members out there exploring these geotrails.
Great. Thank you very much for inviting us to do this. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.